Welcome back to Sports Talk ATL. I am Jake. He is Alex. As we hinted at before we ended the last segment, we're going to talk about Hurston Waldrep, first round pick by the Braves out of Florida. I was kind of shocked they got him where they did. I think there were some concerns that teams thought he wasn't going to be very signable. I mean, the Braves, I think, may have even got him a little bit over slot, a little bit under slot. I don't think it was outrageous either way. Don't quote me on that, but one thing I can tell you is this kid can pitch. If you watch the College World Series, you know that much. The comparison that I gave him, and this isn't some expert scouting analysis, but big fastball, really, really good splitter. It kind of sounds like Kevin Gausman. And Kevin Gausman has been fantastic away from Atlanta. He was really good with the Giants and has been really good with the Blue Jays after leaving the Braves. But one of the things that's always been an issue is control. If he can really, harness his arsenal and get his control nailed down, he's going to be a fantastic pitcher. He could be a frontline starter. And he made his pro debut yesterday. He was with Augusta, which, if you're a college pitcher, you probably don't have to go through the ropes that a lot of the 18-year-old younger players do. So he starts off with Augusta yesterday, throws 3 innings. He does give up 2 runs, only 1 earned though. He struck out 8, struck out the side in the first inning, and he looked sharp.
Yeah, he only gave up 1 walk, so that's good. 1 walk to 8 strikeouts is always good, especially for a kid who, coming out of Florida. The main concern is control. The only thing the Braves are really concerned with, because he's got a high 90s fastball, and like Jake mentioned, a wicked splitter that has some ridiculous stats to go with it at Florida, like swing and miss on like 2/3 of the. It's absurd. It doesn't. It's like those old Jim Brown stories where it's like he throwing a football over the mountain. They're just absurd stats. And he looked the part. There's a lot of stats where he was just getting a tons of swings and misses. But he also had a couple of impressive sliders and changeups that I didn't really know he had. I didn't watch a ton of college baseball. I did see him pitch in the College World Series and didn't really notice the slider changeup. But he did get a few strikeouts on those 2 pitches, so that's encouraging. 4 pitch mixes always projects well. The thing is, it's all about the control. It looks like it's trending in the right direction. Everybody from The Athletic, from ESPN, Jim Bowden, anybody who's got their hands in prospects and MLB draft projects this guy to be the first one from this draft class to reach the majors, which isn't that shocking considering he was a 3rd year out of college. But what is interesting, and I always bring it back to this, to what you said, maybe weeks ago, leading up to the MLB trade draft, was everyone kind of expected the Braves to replenish the lower levels of the farm system, to kind of get that growth grassroots back up, and they've done the exact opposite. They've gone the opposite way, college arms, not high school arms, which I think is very illuminating of what's currently going on in Atlanta. Max Fried is a free agent after the next year. Charlie Morton's aging out. We're not sure what Bryce Elder is. Spencer Strider and Kyle Wright are about the only long-term solid options the Braves really have. So it does make a little sense. And I don't think it's crazy to say that we could see Waldrep, outside of the control thing here in the next couple of years. Like, he could certainly rocket through the Braves farm system. They've never been afraid to move a prospect through the farm. Ever.
Yeah, and that's an interesting point. I'm not super convinced that it has that much to do with, impending free agent stuff like you mentioned. Charlie Morton's not getting any younger. Max Fried could possibly leave. I think it has more to do with the volatility of high school pitching. So, like last year, they went really heavy on high school pitching, and that's great and all, especially in terms of development stuff when you need to fill up the lower levels of the minors. But high school pitching is the most volatile thing you can draft. Those guys are, they could either be superstars or they could be working at your local IHOP within a couple weeks. You really don't know that much about him. All you know is, hey, this kid throws hard. Hey, this kid's got a nice curveball. And that's why you really don't see a lot of them draft, like number 1 overall, things like that. But I do think that there is something, it's worth noting that they are going away from that strategy. Like I said, I did think they were going to continue to look, to go that direction, but they didn't. I don't think it makes a difference what they think is going to happen in free agency, because that's just the nature of the MLB draft. I think if they did want, trade chips, anything like that, I think they wanted somebody that would be a impact player sooner rather than later. I don't know. I'm not in the room. I don't really know how they think about those things, but I do think it is an interesting point.
It's worked out recently for him. Spencer Strider out of Clemson, Kyle Wright, man. I mean, yeah, it's worked out for him recently. So there's no telling what is going down in the room. It may be more just about the prospect than anything, just the actual prospect than not the projected. Obviously, the projectability, but not the timeline, and more just the prospect itself. Outside of I'm sure they have an input. Team timeline, prospect timeline, and if it works out, so be it. But I think it's more just about hitting on the prospects. That's the most important thing. You just want to hit on these draft picks. That is the most important thing. So that's what they probably value about more than anything.
Yeah, I definitely agree. I think they are a team that actually does go best player available. Like, I know every organization likes to say that. That's not always the case, but I actually do think the Braves are a team that probably do actually sit there and say, what are our best options? And this is the first draft without Dana Brown, which is a big deal because Dana Brown's found a lot of the guys on this roster that have made a huge difference. And, he's the GM of the Astros now. But I think Waldrep was the right
one guy doesn't. That's another thing it's a lot of people say it on the player side. Dansby said it actually this week, that they asked him, this Braves team is incredible without you, basically. He's like, listen, one guy doesn't make a team, especially a team as good as that. And I think that sentiment, bleeds through the front office as well. One guy doesn't make the front office, though. Dana Brown, he gets credited for Michael Harris, I think Spencer Strider, and a laundry list of other guys. But again, it's a team, it's a group effort. One guy doesn't make it. He's a terrible guy to lose in that calculation. But they'll be fine.
Yeah, I agree as well. But it's when you look at the guys that they took, that was one of those things where I kind of just would have been mad if they didn't take Waldrep, unless you were just absolutely positive you couldn't sign him. It's one of those things where good teams, when they see somebody fall down a board like that, they go, "Hey, it's incredible how often professional teams just overthink the draft." And we talk about it all the time. Like, you guys are trying to do rocket surgery here. There's no reason to make it this complicated. Good player, take good player. And I understand there's concerns with signability, health, all this stuff. But really, at the end of the day, sometimes it's not that complicated. I think the Braves made the right move because you look at the guys that were falling down the board, and, these teams are like, oh, well, this guy has a ton of projectability. And I guess the Braves looked at this kid and they were like, all right, well, he was one of the best pitchers of the entire College World Series. He might have been a College World Series MVP if they had beat LSU. So I don't know. I love the pick. I like this kid already. We'll definitely be keeping an eye on him as we go along in this season. But coming up after the break, we're going to talk about Cordero Patterson a little bit. There's this narrative that the Falcons are going to cut him, and I don't know about you, but I'm just not buying that at all.